And growing up, as you said, so young in this industry, you don't really have to become an adult in many ways. You have managers or people doing certain things for you, and you kind of just get to have fun a lot, and you don't have to take on a lot of responsibilities. And it was important to me to become like a full-formed human, I guess you could say. I appreciate mystery. Like, I really loved as a kid searching for interviews, trying to find out information about somebody that I liked and not knowing everything about them. Like, I don't want to know what my favorite artist is eating for breakfast. I want them to make me dream.
But I think it's really important to show that it's a big fight and a big struggle, and artists don't live in this kind of fantasy world. They also live in the material world where they have to provide care, and they have feelings of guilt, and they feel torn
1000%.
between their work and their family. So yeah, I think we need to talk about this. Guten Abend and welcome to this talk with Uffie, who's sitting right next to me. Hi, Uffie. Yeah, this talk will be in English, as you have noticed. And my name is Sonja Eismann. I'm one of the founders and publishers of Missy Magazine here in Berlin, and I have the great pleasure to host this talk with Anna Hartley, who's known to all of you by her professional name of Uffie. Just to remind you of her amazing career, she rose to international fame with her track Pop The Glock, that probably all of you will know. And that was released on French label Ad Banger in 2006 when she was only 18 years old and living in Paris as an English-American fashion student, more or less, I'd say, yeah. And at this time, you started touring and kind of partying unstoppably all over the world. You released your debut album, Sex Dreams and Denim Jeans, in 2010, and you also had 2 kids. You were born in Miami, but you've lived kind of everywhere, like in Hong Kong, in Missouri, in Paris, even here in Berlin and in LA, where you based at the moment as well, right? And and then you told me that you moved out into the Mojave Desert when it kind of all became too much. Maybe we can talk about this a little bit later on. And her new album, Sunshine Factory, came out this summer and kind of marks her return to the music industry on her own terms, I would say. Please give a very warm welcome to Uffie.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
And before we start our little talk, which will go on for about 45 minutes, and there will be the opportunity to ask questions at the end, we will watch the video of her new track, Where Did the Party Go? Yeah, so we've seen this video, and I was wondering if I said the title right. I think I said it in the past tense. Where did the party go? But actually, it is
where does the party
go? So I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
And but one of the some part of the lyrics I found very interesting, also in regard to your career, because you're singing "I can't go back," too much to unpack. And so when you started out your career as a very young person, you had this image as like the ultimate party girl, an image that was, I think, a lot of fun, but also could become very destructive in a way. So what would you say, how is the party you're singing about different this time, or is it different at all, or in what way do you want it to come back?
I think for this song in particular, for me, it was kind of more of a metaphor, and it was really just kind of like that hustle of the life of whatever game you're chasing. And in this industry, especially in electronic music, partying and playing is a huge part of that. And for me, it became so much of kind of like a chore where for everybody, it's their one night of the week or month or however often they go out where like you want it to be magical for them, but for you kind of have to show up like that every day. And it kind of like transformed into like also just studio, being on tour, like that grind. And it's like, where does the party go? Like, where does the fun of it go when it becomes that job?
And I think the unpacking part could be also read as like never like
can't look back.
Yeah, but you're always like packing your suitcase and you're never really unpacking it. And I mean, I think your traveling schedules were really unbelievable sometimes. I think you were like sometimes not even sleeping at the time, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, getting to sleep can be a luxury on tour for sure. But I mean, it's also just like you kind of just also mentally and emotionally have to keep moving forward and can't really look back or even like dive too much into indulge your own emotions sometimes because you just have to keep it going.
Yeah, and I mean, I already pointed out that at the beginning of your career, you were like an incredibly young person. I mean, basically a child, because when you look at people when they're 17 or 18, they're like, yeah, still children in a way. And you met like DJ feeds of Ed Banger when you were 15. And I think you had a fantastic time then, like living the grand life. And
I mean, for sure, getting paid to party is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. But like looking back, sometimes I think people weren't really making sure you were in a safe place then because you were like fit to handle all of this. And do you think it's like there were like certain people to blame, or is it a structural problem of the music industry?
I mean, I think definitely more of a structural problem. It was just very much a different time. Self-care wasn't a thing. People weren't called out, like sexism was fine. It was, like didn't matter the artist's health or like stability. It was just kind of like whatever to keep it going as long as it's selling. Like that's what matters. And I think like being so young, I look back, I would book my own tours on like in Australia on MySpace and just with strangers and go there and do it. And it's quite crazy how fine it all turns out, and it was really magical to have that freedom, but there also is a dark underbelly to that.
Yeah, and you told me when we had like a little chat before this talk that mental health is an issue that you think isn't talked about enough when it comes to the music industry. And I think, things are getting better. People, care about things like self-care and mental health and well-being. But do you think it's still a taboo because the show must go on and you have to entertain people?
To an extent, and I think some people, it's not even that they even care now in the industry, it's just like they can be called out on it now. Like cancel culture can go a bit far, but it also has enabled people to have a platform and a voice to be held accountable, which is good. But I mean, like with everything in the world, there's good, there's bad, there's beautiful and ugly, and I think the two will always exist. But it is great, like there has been a lot of growth in the development of that platform.
Yeah, definitely. I think things are definitely changing, but for you, you kind of went. Would you say that you went on hiatus? Did you ever leave the music industry for real, or was it just like a?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I did. I ran away into the Mojave Desert, Joshua Tree, and just wanted it to be the furthest thing away from what I had been living. And I think just having my second child, I had lost my mother recently, and growing up, as you said, so young in this industry, you don't really have to become an adult in many ways. You have managers or people doing certain things for you, and you kind of just get to have fun a lot, and you don't have to take on a lot of responsibilities. And it was important to me to become like a full-formed human, I guess you could say. So I definitely ran away and just lived in the countryside in the desert and didn't talk to anyone for a while.
Oh wow, okay, that sounds really like fascinating and is far removed from the music industry.
It was really fun.
But like, did you think you'd never come back? Because did you really think I'm finished with this industry?
I don't know, like I think at the time I did, but looking back, probably not. I think I just didn't know anything of what I wanted to do. I just knew like I wanted to be in a completely different scenario and have just like a fresh kind of reset and just really focus on family for a while.
Yeah, because I mean, I can imagine that it wasn't the music that you were fed up with, but the structures that were like the draining the life out of you. But I mean, we'll come back to that a little bit later. But now I want to turn to the present or the future even. And I read that your new album, The Sunshine Factory, was 10 years in the making. Is that true? Did you work constantly on it? Or
no, that's not true.
That's not true. Okay. Like a lot of things in the media, it's not true. Okay.
A second one was definitely, I started one, but I ended up not keeping anything for this. The Sunshine Factory started, it was a title that I'd had for a while, but I had written Cool in a random session set up by my publishers, and it was the first song that really felt exciting to me and new and kind of groundbreaking for myself as an artist. So I kind of, during the pandemic, it was right before lockdown, and during lockdown, there was a really different creative air. There was like no pressure to show up, no pressure to do shows. It was just all for the taking. So I went to Portugal and wrote the entire thing in 2 weeks. And then went to Oakland after and finished it with Toi Moi. So it was actually the quickest record I've done.
Okay, wow. But did you think you were like in a different position, in a different place to take on like the structures of the music industry with more like, I don't know, not self-esteem because you've always had that, but with more like experience and not like be like taken advantage of so much?
For sure. I think just again, like this record wasn't promised to a label. There was no plan for it. It was purely for me, and I could have chosen not to release it if I wanted to. And I think while figuring out how I wanted to releasing it with an artist like Toi Moi and his company Records, it was such a safe and really liberating and healing place to work, but just with a fellow artist and as well as somebody who respects your decisions and is just there to support you and lend their hand in any way they can.
Yeah, I was wondering about that as well because, I mean, in the past you could have worked and you worked with many famous artists like Mirwais and Pharrell even. And so how were you sure that this was the right decision to work with somebody like Toi Moi and not like a big shot famous celebrity artist?
I mean, I'm one of his biggest fans, so for me it was kind of a dream come true, and it just vibed right. We started with one song, and the intention was just for it to be that one song, and he like had so much respect for what I wanted out of each track and what was meaningful for me. And I think what's really special about a producer like that is they can kind of put their ego aside, and they want to highlight your best features as an artist, not make it like this is produced by.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you about like the concept of the Sunshine Factory because it sounds very Warholian and it has this really avant-garde, artsy, cutting edge vibe. So did that just like happen organically, or was it clear to you that you didn't want to like appeal like mostly to the mainstream, which it still does, but like was it important to you to have like your artistic freedom and express yourself in that way?
For sure. I mean, I love a concept. I think, and when I'm writing songs, it's very cinematic for me. I kind of visualize it as I go. But during the time of writing this, we all just really wanted to escape during that time. And I was missing like nature, but also the concretes of clubs and all those textures. And I just wanted to create kind of like a fantasy to escape to. And it just came together organically as it progressed, thankfully, cohesively. But I think like sonically for me, what was interesting was choosing to use more live instruments. And I think part of that was like a protection thing for me, so it wouldn't just be like ravey shows that I could play.
Okay. But when you compare this process with the beginning of your career, were you like much more involved artistically or in the writing process, or did you always have like full control?
Definitely much more. And I think the fact that I had just gone away with one person and just written it all, it was everything I was feeling and living in that moment, where my first record was kind of spanned over so many journeys and stories in my life and so many different people, and I definitely didn't have the vocabulary or really clear direction of what it was to make an album, to really have that proper control over it.
And you have kind of worked with other people in the form of interludes, and there's also one interlude with Peaches, which is really funny because Peaches talks about her dick
getting stuck in the door, as it does.
Yeah, couldn't make it because the dick is stuck in the door. And were you already a fan of hers when you started out in 2006? Was she like an influence or even a role model?
For sure. I mean, I am a huge fan. She's an amazing woman, an artist, and I'd actually met her when I was first starting out. Early days, probably when I was 16, 17, at a festival that goes on in Miami, Winter Music Conference. So, and she was just always very nice and supportive, and I love that she'll take the time to support other artists in that way.
It's really interesting because, I mean, I told you this before, but I, of course, didn't tell the audience. I think around 2005 or 6, I did an interview with you in Paris, and at the same time, I probably also did an interview with Peaches for the Music Magazine intro, which doesn't exist anymore. And although now it seems clear to me that it was kind of the same music because it was kind of like this electro vibe, or even electro clash as it was called at the time in a way. But I didn't for me, you were like two totally different phenomena. You didn't belong to the same world, though of course you did. But yeah.
Yeah, it's funny looking back, because at the time I wouldn't have really compared our music, but now looking back at what we're releasing at the same time, there's definitely a lot there.
Yeah, it's funny that you see it the same way, because I thought maybe I was I was narrow-minded or something, but yeah.
I think then the French scene, especially that rebirth of the French touch, it was such a specific group of people, and that's probably why at the time it felt really distant, I think.
Yeah, and I mean on Ed Banger, if I remember correctly, it was very male environment. I think you were the only girl and a very young one at that. And did you have any other female role models? Because I mean now there's lots of musicians of all genders, but I don't know, a few decades back it still is, but it's getting better. A very male dominated industry. So did you see other women or female identified performers who you were looking to for inspiration?
Not really for inspiration, but there were definitely some other females like Amanda Blank, Santi Gold, MIA among the scene. Yeah,
so but they they kind of started out at the same time for you, so they were more like peers than
it was just comforting to see them backstage.
yeah, I can imagine. But yeah, I mean that's kind of maybe a more personal question, but how did it feel to be the one girl? Because I mean it can be very empowering to be the one and only, and to hang out with the cool guys, but did it sometimes feel also limiting, or were there instances of sexism that weren't so cool?
I mean, definitely it was I think a lot of it as well was also just being so much younger than them. I look back and it must have looked so strange, all these Frenchmen touring with this teenage girl. But I mean, I was lucky that they're a great group of people for the most part. So I mean, they kind of helped raise me in a sense, and I learned a lot from them. It was definitely felt quite cool to be the only girl in that scene. But yeah, again, it can get heavy and a bit old sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's something that's maybe only felt like in hindsight, because like when you're living through it, you're like just enjoying it. But I remember, because I was older than you then already.
Was it strange to you?
And I was looking at your performances, and I thought that's really cool, and they all look like they have a lot of fun together. But it was like also always a little bit weird to see these older men and you like as a very young performer. So.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, it definitely, I look at it a little different now.
Yeah, I can imagine that, like, your perspectives shift as you grow older. And I mean, yeah, when you started out, you had this, like, to me, it was more like this image of the Parisian fashion student. But like when I watch your videos now, I see that there's also a lot of punk in it, and you're like really like, yeah, you're this bratty teenage performer who takes on like the world of the old fart, which is really cool. But I mean, I was also wondering about the image. I mean, did you sometimes feel trapped in this kind of like sexy Lolita image? Is that something that's hard to get rid of, that sticks to you?
Yeah, a bit. I mean, you kind of also just want to rebel against at that age what people want you to do and what they expect of you. I remember in the difficult video, that was my moment of rebelling, and I just like refused to dress up and just put on a gray t-shirt and pants, and it felt like really like empowering and reviving to do that. But I mean, I love fashion and I do love dressing up, but I think it's just when people start to expect a certain thing from you, it starts to not feel as much your choice or your power anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I also wanted to talk to you about the role of fashion and like performing and like, putting your body out there. I mean, how has that changed over the year? I mean, the way you present yourself in your videos is still like there's lots of similarities, but now I think it's even much more arty than like where it was like punky, cool, bratty. It's like more avant-garde now.
Yeah, I mean, as one ages. But I think before I worked with like a lot of stylists, and now I prefer to just work with like brands that I love, pull from them and just do it myself. And I think there's just not that pressure of that like commercial rollout where you feel like you have to show up a certain way, or you can be like a little more weird.
And I mean, when you were in Paris, you were there to study fashion, but I think you never finished school, right? Because the music career came in the way.
Yeah, I actually went to high school in Paris, and then left a year early to start at Esmode Fashion School there. But yeah, I was started to tour, so it was really impossible to do both. But I did get to do a capsule collection with Diesel that was really fun, and kind of still explore that.
Oh, okay, but not at that time.
No,
okay, yeah. But would that be something that you'd like to fall back on, or is it only like a side project to your music projects?
I mean, you never know. It's something like I do really love doing like capsule collections or collaborations with brands. I don't think I would want the pressure of having to run that entire business on the side. But I think it's just a really fun way to express yourself. And I think that's kind of what fashion is. You get to choose who you want to be that day. And it's similar to any art in that way.
Yeah, it is an art form that is still underestimated by many. So I think it's an important part of the stage persona. As well. And yeah, I mean, before we talked about the comeback of the noughties fashion, which we're both like a little bit bewildered by, but also fascinated. And when you think back of that time and the trends that are coming out of this kind of revival that's going on, how does that feel for you? Because I mean, you were still like young at the time, but you were also like putting your mark on the fashions and the styles today, and some people who are not even much younger than you are like recycling this kind of fashion. So how does it feel to have been there for the first time around and now seeing like it all coming back?
It's pretty funny, especially when I see like my daughter who's turning 13 wearing certain things that I look back and have photos of me wearing and kind of cringe. It's just quite funny to be around for a revival of something. And one I've noticed lately that's quite big now is the indie sleeves with all the fluo and deep side parts. It's quite funny.
Yeah, indie sleaze. I hadn't even heard about that term before, but yeah, now it makes sense. But
What's
I
a
mean,
lifestyle?
yeah. But like speaking more about like the music side of things, there's lots of people who cite you as like a huge influence, like people like from the PC music cosmos, and there's also Hannah Diamond, I think, performing tonight of PC
cool.
music. And I've read a comment on YouTube. What was that? Like somebody said that I remember one time Sophie and Dos were backstage arguing over which Uffie song was the best one. Your influence is huge. Somebody posted on YouTube. So how does that make you feel?
I mean, it's flattering, of course, but it's also just kind of funny because I think when you're living in it, you just kind of, and you're not trying to make a certain type of thing, it just happens, and you're just doing what you love. Like, it's really cool that it's had an impact and inspired people, but to me, it's kind of like, why?
But when you were starting out, did you have like a coherent concept in terms of genre? Did you know what?
Not at all. I just didn't know how to sing. I was really shy and it just felt awkward. So I thought if we had auto-tune, I would feel more comfortable. And okay. I was too shy to try singing. So it kind of just came out this anti-flow type thing that I've adopted.
And yeah, I mean, of course, you're also cited in reference to like the blog house scene or the MySpace era. Do you think it was easier then to get your music out into the public, or is it easier now that there are so many like digital tools and platforms that people have access to easily?
That's a tricky one. I think it was definitely easier in the sense of there was just so much less out there right now. Like it's so saturated. There's so many social network platforms. There's so many artists putting things out, and it's all happening so fast. Where they're like, I'd have to assume in a way there's less competition, and it was new. There was one platform doing it, so that's definitely makes it easier then, I think. But also now. There are so many platforms and there's things go viral in a different way constantly, but I don't know what that does for longevity.
And does it sometimes happen to you that younger artists like contact you and ask you for expertise and ask you, so how did you do it when you started out? Do you have any tips for me?
Yeah, and I don't know. I have no idea how. It's such a different market, how to break in now. I think the best thing that people can do, which I will always say, is that do you, and don't try and do what you think people want to hear or like what you like of someone else, because you're the only person who can make what you do, and that will make you unique and stand out. And if you believe in that and really push for it, like eventually it will get that traction, I think.
And what do you think about the importance of labels, record labels today? Because, I mean, when you started out, Ed Banger was like the thing. It was really big and it was cool and everybody wanted to have a piece of it. Yeah, and because like it put Paris back on the map because everything was so centered on the English-speaking market and everybody's like, oh, we love Paris anyway. And now they have cool music that's so great. And do you think that's the same today? Do labels still have that kind of charisma, or was that kind of deconstructed by, things like Spotify or whatever?
I mean, there are still some like exciting and up and coming or underground niche labels. Like Sega Bodega and Shy Girl have one called Nuxie that's super cool. And I think there will always be those, but I do think that streaming in general and platforms like Spotify have really washed that out, and they've made it like very unfair. I mean, to get on playlisting, it's really hard if you don't have the support or the pull from that label. So it has kind of ruined that magic a bit, but I think Ed Banger was a very specific magic moment in time that like everything aligned.
And do you think the economic situation of musicians starting out is worse today? Because we hear a lot of stuff about the rights of really famous old musicians being bought by stock market companies because people only want to hear like what they've known for 5 decades, and major labels not like trying to break new artists because it's way too expensive and they should rather invest in back catalogs. So how do you assess this situation today?
I mean, there is that, but also, like, what's a shame is there is no developing artist. I mean, I think now it's quite hard to get a deal on a major label if you don't have a streaming proven viral hit already. That's what they want. And what's kind of sad for those artists, like, I'm sure they're killing it, great for them, but also there's no longevity in that. Just because you have like this TikTok viral hit doesn't mean that you're going to be able to sell out like a venue, let alone a stadium. And without like really communicating with your fans and building that core fan base, it's very hard to grow off that.
Yeah, but I mean, what's your relationship to like social media in general? Because I think you once like erased your Twitter when you were fed up.
Boycotting.
Yeah. But I mean, you can't like be a musician without it today, so.
It's pretty hard. I mean, I'm kind of shit at social media. It's not something that comes very natural to me. I can do Instagram, a bit of Twitter, but I appreciate mystery. Like I really loved as a kid searching for interviews, trying to find out information about somebody that I liked and not knowing everything about them. Like, I don't want to know what my favorite artist is eating for breakfast. I want them to make me dream.
Yeah, that's probably like a new kind of engagement with artists to have like this transparency and to feel very close to them. And yeah, I also agree that kind of takes away the mystery. But I wanted to come back to something that we were talking a little bit about earlier, because I mentioned that you had like during your amazing career you managed to have 2 kids, and I mean, not being a musician and not touring all the time, I wonder, I mean, how you did it, because even for people who have like this normal lifestyle, it can be really crazy. And do you think like it is possible today to reconcile having a music career as a mother? I say this explicitly, not as a father, because we all know it's still different. Do you think, how was that journey for you, and what do you think has changed?
With my first child, I was very young. I was 20, and it was really hard. It was at the height of my career. We had to like pause a music video and finish filming it after I'd had her, because you could tell that I was pregnant, and I had to fight for like 3 months off after having her to like get back in shape and hit the road. And I mean, it's hard enough acclimating to being any kind of working mother, but also like identifying as a woman like yourself, as an artist as well, and as learning to be a mother. And when you don't have the support in your team really to take the time to do that, like it's traumatic and it's hard. And I think that's why for me it was really important when I had my second child. That's when I decided to go to the desert, to just put that first and really learn how to do that. Again, being a working mom is hard for everyone. It's really difficult, but I think it's also, my kids are at an age now where it's easier for me to be away, or they can come travel with me sometimes. And I think it's really cool for them to get to see that I do what I love. Like, my kids are growing up in studios sometimes, and it's a different life, but I love that I get to share that, and it can be more full circle now. And it's definitely hard, but you've got to have a support network.
Yeah, but I really think we need more conversations around this, because I mean, a lot of people say it's not like feminist to talk to mothers about their kids, because like it genders them and like puts them as who are like the sole caregivers, which I think is wrong. I think we should also talk to fathers about like having kids and having like a career in the arts. But for them, of course, it's still easier because a lot of times they have spouses or partners who just stay at home with the kids and nobody asks them about it. But I think it's really important to show that it's a big fight and a big struggle, and artists don't live in this kind of fantasy world. They also live in the material world where they have to provide care and they have feelings of guilt and they feel torn 1000%. Between their work and their family. So yeah, I think we need to talk about this more.
For sure, because it's a reality, and it's been really cool seeing artists like MIA when she performed pregnant, and I saw Cardi B at Coachella very pregnant. It was really cool, and I think it's nice that just like being able to continue your career now while you're pregnant is also important, that can be normal.
Yeah, I think the most what we see is just like big Hollywood stars like gushing about how great it is to be a mother, and yeah, that's true, but it's only part of the truth, and like all the heartbreak and longing and stress is never really addressed. So I think
and like when you can't afford like full-time nannies and all of that, and you have to like rely on like your family and your community to help, it's a mission.
Yeah, it's a lot of communication that's involved. Yeah, and talking about that kind of stuff, I was also wondering, I mean, where do you see your place in music in, I don't know, a couple of decades? You want to keep doing what you do, and how do you think that works out for women now? Because, I mean, there's still like this norm to look youthful all the time, to be fit, and to be hip and sexy. So do you think there is a change going on that's making it easier for women to be older in pop music? I mean, Madonna has just turned 65, I think, but
64,
I think she's going to be 65 really soon, but I think she looks even younger than at the beginning of her career.
And she's still having the time of her life.
Okay. Maybe that's like, maybe we're not seeing the whole picture, but who knows? I mean, she's like a phenomenon. But yeah, do you think there's a change going on there? Or?
Most definitely. I think, I mean, even age aside, pop stars specifically, it was just very much like a cookie cutter image of just either like blonde, really skinny, like you dressed a certain way, everyone followed these trends. And I think we're seeing a lot of female artists and artists in general that are just different sizes, shapes, colors, and that's an amazing thing. And I think there's so much more space and acceptance in the industry as there should be, and that's been an important shift. And I think that age is kind of coming along with that. And I think specifically when you are more like an alternative artist, there's a lot more leeway and less pressure in that.
Yeah, this is definitely true. So there are some advantages to being an alternative artist, although, I mean, you're still like a very like famous and well-known figure, so you can like be both mainstream and alternative, and maybe you can have like a big impact on both worlds as a role model.
And I think like again, that's why it's important to just like follow your own path. Like you're not competing with anyone when you are doing you, and I think you get to make your own choices then, and you can age. Like Karen O is amazing from Yeah. She's like just doing whatever she wants, looks fantastic, and I hope like, you know, she's like Debbie Harry and just never stops.
Yeah, or people like Patti Smith who just like really never gave a damn about like gender concepts or whatever. Although I was kind of like sad that she never like identified as a feminist. I think she always said she's a humanist, but I mean that's totally her choice. And I think there's a lot of visibility for feminism now, so we don't really have to worry about that anymore. And yeah, I think I'm on to my last question, and there will be the opportunity for the audience to ask some questions. But it's kind of a cheesy question, but I still want to ask you. So if you look back at the beginning of your career, like all the knowledge you have now, what would you tell like the young Uffie that was starting out? What like kind of advice would you give her?
Ooh, so many. I think one thing that I've really learned after taking a break and coming back to music is it wasn't always like you just get to be at that level. I don't think I realized how lucky I was with what I came in and the opportunities I was given. And because of those, it's definitely opened more doors while coming back to a career, but you're not always going to be there. Everything isn't always going to be easy. There will be ups and downs, and it might hurt your ego sometimes. You gotta like learn and grow. So just like appreciate it and be there in the moment.
Okay, and what would you like tell young Uffie or other people? What should you focus on when you're like in the down phase? What are good things? Should you look for things outside of music or concentrate more on music?
Definitely do things that are not just music. I think it's, whenever I feel really depressed or anxious, I kind of forget, like, just leave the house. It's kind of that simple. When you're, like, wallowing in it, you kind of just forget that there's so much other things out there that are really more important.
Yeah, also worth having a look at. Okay, thank you very much,
Thank
Uffie.
you.
And now, you have like the opportunity to ask questions, and there is somebody going around with a microphone. So if there's something that you always wanted to know, please ask now. There is somebody in the back.
Hey. Hi. Is it on? Yeah. First of all, congratulations for the second album.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Thanks
also,
so much.
great show yesterday. I really enjoyed it.
It was so fun. Good crowd.
It was really cool. Yeah, thanks a lot. I hope you're not bored by the question, but I was always wondering how the ways between you and Ed Banger actually parted. If it was like a bang, who decided to go, or are you still in contact? Like, how did it happen?
So when I was working on my second album, it was gonna be with them, but that's when I kind of took my hiatus and decided I didn't want to be in music anymore. So when I came back, so much time had passed, it just seemed natural to kind of do my own thing, and it was important for me to do it my way and kind of figure it out on my own. We definitely took a breather minute from each other, but I'm still in contact with them and see a lot of them a lot, and it was like being with a teenager. You can be a bit of a difficult kid sometimes, so we had our moments, but we're good.
Cool, nice. Thanks.
Of course.
Yeah, there is a raised hand, the second row.
Hi, Uffie. I'm so nervous. Your show was so amazing yesterday. I had the best time of my life. I want to know who are like Anna Judson and Sophia. Do they have like a personality? Are they like a persona? What do they represent? Do you have like an image of them in your mind?
Yeah, Anna Judson kind of started out as just like all of them were different parts of my personality kind of, and I wanted to dream and explore that. And Anna Judson, I was always thinking about that cartoon, The Jetsons, that was supposed to be set in the future, and just that kind of like dreamy, whimsical, flighty person. Sophia, that was actually the demo name of that song, which was the first one I started with Tori Moi, and it kind of was just like that dream girl in orange for us. That song just gave us orange for some reason. And,
Okay, there's another question.
Hello. Thank you for the nice talk. I have to admit that I haven't known you before, but I really liked the talk, and it reminded me of a theater I saw recently. It was called It's Britney Bitch. Maybe some people here in the room know it. It was here in Berlin.
oh, cool! It sounds good.
Yeah, it was about Britney Spears and how her career went, also very young, and a lot of people tried to influence her. It didn't go very well, and she still was treated as a child for a very long time.
Yeah.
And now there's all this Britney solidarity, and people are interpreting her songs also more feminist. So I was wondering, like, it was almost the same time, you were also very young. So did you think about that? Did you identify with her or not?
I think that's just on such a whole other scale. I think she represented something in pop culture and music at a time where it was just like the worst of the worst, and I think I cannot compare to that kind of intensity.
But yeah, thank you very much for the question, because that was like close to one question I forgot to ask, but which I found really important because, during that time, during the decade of the noughties, everybody was like, oh, sexism is over, and if we do it, if we make jokes like sexist jokes, it's only ironic because we all know that like women are not like treated like in a lesser way than men anymore because there's like equality. But when we look at these like the documentary that came out about Britney Spears, it's really shocking to see how she was treated, how Paris Hilton was treated, whatever you may think of them, their personalities or their careers or whatever, but the amount of hate that they got for just being young and female was
proper
incredible.
Abuse. It's crazy. And I don't think anyone really realized at that time. Everyone was just kind of caught up in the wind of like that's how culture was moving. But watching that documentary, it's crazy.
Yeah, it just like really made me feel so awful, and just like I mean, I have to say that I even at the time was like, this is not okay, this is sexist, but because they were such mainstream like icons, somehow it felt okay for a lot of people to just trash them and call them like the most horrible names. So and that wasn't even that long ago. So yeah, maybe we can talk about that a little bit more when the big revival comes up.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question, if there is one. I have to check the clock again. Yeah. Okay, if not, I think we're all set. Yay. Thank you very much, Uffie. It was a pleasure. It was a delight having you here. And
it's good to see you again, and thank everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. And just one bit of info. I think the panel after this one was cancelled, so you can look at the schedule again and find other exciting places to go. So thanks for coming here. Thank you so much, Uffie.
Of course. Thanks, you guys. And thanks everyone for yesterday. So fun.